I'd like to call this meeting of the Woonsocket City Council to order for Monday, January 24th, 2022. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoia.
Here.
Councilwoman Gonzalez. Councilman Gillette.
Here.
Councilwoman Sierra.
Here.
Councilman Susi.
Here.
Councilman Ward.
Here.
President Gendron.
Here, if you could please stand for the prayer and the pledge.
God our Father, we ask that you send your blessing upon this city and upon this council. Guide us in our efforts, increase our motivation, and strengthen our resolve to build a better community and ensure a brighter future for the city of Woonsocket. This we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, agenda for Board of License Commissioners.
22 LC02, application of licenses and renewal of licenses.
Mr. President, I make a motion to pass the following renewals, just renewals of one license. How's that? 2 licenses.
Motion made by Councilman Gillette,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22 LC02 is approved, 6-0. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Motion to accept with the exception of 12/021 bills, 22 CO5 Woonsocket bids, and 22 CO8 monthly staffing vacancy report. I'd like to take those out separately.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia, seconded by Councilman Ward, with the exception of the 3 mentioned agenda items. Any other items to be taken up separately? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And we'll move directly on to 21 bills. If we can have a motion to receive and then have comment.
Moved.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments? Councilman Canoia.
I'm the only one I really have is vacancy, so
Okay. Is there anyone,
I'll do this.
can we start with, just so we go in order, Councilman Ward, did you want?
Yes, Council
Very good.
President. The simple question had to do with a very large amount of money paid to Aetna Bridge Company. We paid, I know we were doing the River Street project, so I'm assuming that that was one of those. There was one for $106,000, another for $204,000. The $204,000 was not River Street. Do we know what that was for? As a reminder. I know River Street was 130, I believe, for the bridge repair.
I think I seem to remember that. Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so obviously.
Maybe.
Page 34 and page 37, Chris.
I know maybe the account number will help. There's an account 010 in front of one of them, and the other one is under 014. And I'm not sure what the difference is between those two.
I can tell you. So, is that Aetna Bridge? Is
Yes.
that what you're looking at? So, 014 is the water infrastructure account.
Oh. Okay.
I can pull the invoices and.
All right, but that was a water department then, and not
No,
the.
no. Aetna Bridge didn't come out of the water department account.
No. I'm saying no. The $204,000 one, the one that's the other one,
Possible.
seems to have come out of the water department.
But that is also Aetna Bridge?
That's Aetna Bridge, correct?
Oh, yeah, that's for the Reservoir 1. To
Oh.
repair the dam.
Oh, okay. All right. That's why I knew we were doing River
Yep.
Street.
Yeah,
I just didn't
rings
recollect.
a bell now, but when you
Okay.
said River Street,
Well, that was there were 2 bills, and that's 2
Right.
payments, and that's,
Okay,
I knew
yeah.
one was only 130
as
approved.
soon as she said water department, that's Reservoir 1.
Okay.
The bid was approved to rebuild the dam.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, that's all I had.
Any other comments on the bills report? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the bills report is received as presented. Moving on to 22CO05. Do we have a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. I believe, Councilman Ward, you had
Yes,
a question on that?
It's not so much a question as a request. I know I had put in the ordinance to add a bid log to our information receipt, and I find that this report, though it's somewhat informative, is sort of not really missing some of the important information that we may be interested in terms of dollars, in terms of all other bidders, et cetera. But I know the bid tabulation sheet does have that, and I know you prepare one for every bid. And so I'm asking, maybe as a better way to report the bids to us, is with these, if for those where there is a bid awarded, if you could also include with this report a copy of the bid tabulations for those where there actually was a bid received and a decision made about awarding a bid, so that we can have a sense, I think a more complete sense of how each of those is working out.
Okay.
And I know you have to prepare them anyway, so to throw them in there, I'm sure, is no big effort. It's just, I think it would be more informative to the council to know what the results were of each of those. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. That was all.
Any other comments regarding the bids report? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22CO5 is received as presented, 6-0. Moving on to the vacancy report, 22CO-08. Do we have a motion?
Motion to receive.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments? Councilman Canoyer, I think this was yours.
Yeah. So, Chris, Director, I'm sorry. Has there been any progress on the tax assessing position? I know we had a discussion about someone from Arkansas, was it, or
He declined.
he declined? Oh, so it's still open?
It's still advertised.
Okay. And then, did we lose somebody else in the planning group on the lead side?
We had a gentleman resign last week from the lead construction specialist.
Okay.
His last day is the end of January.
All right. And is there also another position open in Treasury now?
Yes,
That was, okay.
we've advertised for that.
Okay. So, that one, the Treasury position is being advertised for?
It's the bookkeeper
Okay.
position.
Okay. So still nothing on the tax assessor?
Correct.
Okay. That'll get ugly at some point. So, okay. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilman Gillette.
Councilman Canoyer, those 3 positions, is that added on to the 15 positions that are available in the city?
Those are not in there's 22 here that shows as open through December, so that would be 2 additional ones.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22CO08 is approved, 6-0 as presented. Moving on to the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting and the special meeting held January 10th, 2022.
Motion passed.
Motion made by Councilman Gillette.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Sierra. Are there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the minutes from the January 10th, 2022 regular and special meeting are approved, 6-0 as presented. Moving on to presentations of petitions, memorials, and remonstrances. Madam Clerk?
Council President,
Councilwoman Sierra.
before we begin, I'm requesting that I can speak under Rhode Island General Law 4246-6. I don't know if this is the appropriate time for me to ask for that.
It can be, yes, sure. Yeah, so we have a motion made by Councilwoman Sierra,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Gillette, to speak on what item?
It's in regard to the ordinances that we passed regarding the animal shelter.
So the
The
animal,
Albuquerque Animal
the
Shelter.
three, okay, very good. Motion made by Councilwoman Sierra, seconded by Councilman Gillette, to speak for informational purposes only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council.
Councilwoman Sierra.
I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed and give everyone a timeline so that you all would be in the know, like I am, as it relates to the legislation that this council passed concerning the animal shelter. It's actually 3 pieces of legislation. As we all know, it's painting the building, an addition, and well, one other thing. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. But regardless, it was 3 pieces of legislation.
It was the shade roof.
Thank you, the Shade Pavilion, thanks. We first passed this legislation back on November 1st, 2021. That's when the original piece went out. It went out as a resolution, and then I'm sure most of us recall hearing the mayor say on the radio that she didn't pay much credence to resolutions, that it had to be an ordinance because she wasn't going to really pay attention to resolutions. So I came back 2 weeks after at our next scheduled council meeting, and I passed that piece of legislation in the form of an ordinance, which we passed on November 15th. And I have that here in front of me. Okay, so then both of those, both the resolution and the ordinance, had a deadline date to produce an RFP by December 13th, 2020. 10 days after that deadline had expired, we received a correspondence from the mayor. 10 days after it expired, we received a correspondence from the mayor requesting that our deadline be extended by 3 weeks, which is fine. I get it. We had a lot of people, a big attrition in the planning department. Apparently, we still are having it too, but we were at that time too. So obviously, I didn't really see a big deal with granting an extension. But I did correspond with the mayor on the 6th of January, which was well after the holiday season, because we got that correspondence requesting extended time the day before Christmas Eve, so I knew that we weren't going to be able to get much done then. So when everybody returned to normal on January 6th, I forwarded a correspondence to the mayor asking if it was just those RFPs that she needed an extension on, or if it was many. Now, that was, again, on January 6th, 2022. I did not get a response from the mayor or anyone from the administration till January 14th, nearly, a little over a week, about 8 days later. And it was a rather convoluted message. I still quite don't understand it, but maybe it's me. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense, the response. Her response was, I have learned that we are not able to request extensions on federal and state grants. Those are hard deadlines. At times, they will notify us that they have extended the timeline. I don't know where federal and state grants have any bearing on going out to RFP for the animal shelter, and I certainly don't recall earmarking federal or state grants to fund these improvements that we were looking to make to the animal shelter. So that aside, that was the 14th. I got that message that I still haven't quite understand, but maybe it's me. Maybe you can explain to me what that means. I don't know. But so then now let's roll the clock till today. So this morning I go on the city website and I see quite a few RFPs on there, new ones as well. And I didn't see the RFPs for the animal shelter. So I reached out to the mayor this morning and I said, can you please respond to me by the morning? I don't know why I don't see the RFPs on there. Perhaps I'm missing something. And it's 7:15 on Monday night, and I haven't gotten a response from that either. So if you want me to surmise the timeline, we are almost 3 months from when we originally passed the legislation, and we still, to my knowledge, have no drafted RFP. Again, the ordinances also had a January 13th deadline. So my question again, unfortunately, goes to you, City Solicitor, because I do believe this is a violation of an ordinance, and I would like you to answer that.
Well, I don't have the ordinance in front of me.
I do. Would you like it?
Well, I mean, I haven't had an opportunity, I didn't expect to be questioned tonight about that, but I think the ordinance that you have in your hand is pretty simplistic and
Clear.
clear. So,
Correct.
I mean, it has a deadline, right?
Yes.
Whatever the deadline is, it has to be met by the ordinance.
Okay. Well, I want this council to know that we are clearly past it, and we are clearly past the deadline date, which is defiance of an ordinance. And I do believe we have all been down this road before. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe one more time you can reiterate to the public what your opinion was as to if this council can remove the mayor if she violates ordinances.
Well, you all know that I made that opinion some time ago, and I filed it with the city clerk, and I just reiterated what is stated in the city council charter, which delineates certain reasons for which the executive, the mayor could be removed from office, and one of those is not obeying an ordinance.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So again, I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention so that there's no huge surprise coming from me down the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Moving on to item number 10, presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrances.
22P01, a request of Greg Duhamel to address the city council regarding historical cemetery in the city of Woonsocket.
How you
Mr.
doing,
Duhamel,
Council?
if you could just begin with stating your name and address for the clerk.
Yes, my name is Gregory Duhamel. My address is 30 Globe Lane, Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin by speaking on a couple of the books that are about Woonsocket. One is 1876, The History of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, by Erastus Richardson. He writes, the first public demonstration in Woonsocket that is worthy of mention took place in 1833. The literary exercises were held in the Baptist Meeting House. The second book I want to reference is The Beginnings of the Franco-American Colony in Woonsocket, which was published in 1920. She writes, at the time of the founding of its church in 1833, the Baptist Protestant sect opened a cemetery in Woonsocket. For a long time, it was only one in the village of Woonsocket Falls. Many monuments were erected there. Moreover, it was tended with care. Weeping willows, symbols of mourning and suffering, shaded the tombs and seemed to preside over the rest of the deceased. This cemetery, situated on a site which is today between Cato, Arnold, and Railroad Streets, thus dominating the original village. The village, growing bit by bit, soon reached the cemetery and eventually ended up surrounding it. This would prove to be its misfortune. Until 1875, the cemetery was quite maintained. Later, however, the situation changed drastically. Completely abandoned, it became fallow land, monuments ruined, fences disappeared, opening the field of rest to all corners and animals. There was no one to save it from the total ruin. The living forgot their dear departed. But this neglect might still have been accepted had the memory of the dead, asleep in their final rest, at least been respected. And out of deference for them, this holy spot had been preserved to link the past with the present. But such was not the case, unfortunately. But beforehand, as if to excuse in advance the rape that they were about to undertake with regard to the site, and in an attempt to make everyone forget the first usage of the site, it served as a park where children came to romp, then as a dump for the people's refuse. Thus, little by little, this old cemetery became an ordinary, nondescript place. Commercial interests by then no longer harbored any scruples about appropriating the land. Without further delay, the land was dug up in all directions to install foundations of commercial buildings. During excavations, caskets tumbled down, sometimes onto the tools of the laborers, but no importance was attached to such incidents. These caskets were coldly buried elsewhere, everything thrown pell-mell into graves, which had quickly been dug, pieces of casket boards, wreaths, bones, and fragments of clothing. Stables and sheds were then built on top of the land, as well as lumber yards and workshops, and then homes. And so this is what became of the ancient Baptist cemetery, which should have been preserved as a relic of the past. This consecrated place for the repose of the dead, which should have been looked upon as a sacred place, was desecrated and destroyed in an odious manner. Nothing is left of the cemetery today, which goes back to the infancy of the city of Woonsocket, and I, Gregory Duhamel, will add, only 4 of the 15 known buried have known relocations at other cemeteries. 8 are unaccounted for. 3 are known to remain at Baptist Hill Cemetery along Cato Street. It is our goal to preserve and protect and memorialize these 3 forgotten unknowns due to the last century's mistake within our city's history. In October of 2021, JG Remodeling hired an archaeologist to determine if there is any remains. Based on our research at Blackstone Valley Historical Society and the advice we received from Charlotte Taylor of the Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission, we were under the impression remains may possibly be found at this site. 2 children and 1 adult located in burial shafts that they were originally buried in by Plymouth Archaeology were detected. Our team at the Blackstone Valley Historical Society would like to fundraise for permanent individual gravestones for the 3 unknowns, along with a cenotaph memorial stone to acknowledge the cemetery's history to prevent this tragic event from happening again in our city's history. I come here today to seek permission to move forward with our plan to erect these monuments for the forgotten deceased. Rhode Island General Laws 23-18-1 through 23-18-15 speak about regulations regarding historic cemeteries. We would be within our rights to fundraise and install permanent gravestones, but we want these stones in the historic cemetery sign we install to be protected and recognized based on General State Laws 23-18. And to close, this was also written by Marie-Louise Bonnier in 1920. She writes, "Oh, how the memory of the living is short where the dead is concerned." Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
22P03, request of Public Works Director to address the City Council regarding the RFP sale of gravel, Cass Park, and discussion in regard to development of Cass Park.
Director?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I felt it was important to address the council as to the RFPs for the sale of gravel and the direction that this project's moving in or might move in. As you are aware or not aware, I put out several RFPs for sale of gravel for Cass Park, and I didn't get a favorable response, but a lot of interesting inquiries and promising, quite frankly, just not in that manner that I proposed. The RFP was not well received by many of the vendors, as I suspected it wouldn't be. Once I put it out, I realized that it was just filled with governmental challenges. That's why I pulled the initial one and resubmitted it after a discussion with the solicitor. I felt that, some of the interest in it was fading because of the RFP was just too heavy with upfront costs, quite frankly, and supervision needed by the vendors. But there were many interested parties. There still are many interested parties if we pursue it in a different direction, which I am planning to do in the near future. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll have a set of engineered stamp plans from Par Engineering that I'll submit to the council. I'll have a workshop with you all. I'll request one, and at that time, I'll submit a different approach to remove the gravel because there is a demand and an appetite for it, just not in this manner. And I blame only myself for this. As you take this position coming from the outside, you get lost sometimes, and you just don't recognize all the things that you can put in an RFP that can actually hurt it, not help it. So there was, as I said, quite a bit of interested parties. And I'm going to pass out to you this evening just one such party that chose to email. This is a very large company in Rhode Island, and they emailed and were asking if the city would be interested in selling 150,000 tons, which equates to about 107,000 cubic yards of gravel. So that's roughly a quarter of the deposit there. So that's significant. They just were not interested in the entire deposit, which I can understand. But there are many vendors out there that are interested in the entire deposit. They just don't want such things as police details, tree removal, stripping the overburden, all things that we could do, as a city vendor could do it.
No, not at all.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Steve. Director?
So many of the interested parties I met either on site or I had phone calls, phone discussions with them, and they were all, as I say, very, very interested in the entire deposit. They just didn't want to do any of the, as I said, hiring of police details, tree removal, overburden. They just basically said, listen, you load it, we'll buy it. And that's basically it. So I believe that this could be very fruitful towards the entire project. I believe we could eliminate or remove much of the cost to build this athletic complex. And I firmly believe that after many discussions with these vendors. So at this workshop, I'll have the plans, I'll have a hard cost of the entire project, and what I believe that the sale of this material will yield. And we can make a decision from there. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions for Director D'Agostino?
Council President,
Councilman Canoia?
Director, excuse me. A, thanks for the update. B, you said you'll have some engineering plans. Those plans will be of what again, exactly?
They will be of the entire site, as it relates to all the other fields and.
Okay, so the actual the proposed athletic complex, you're not talking about engineering plans related to the gravel extraction?
No.
Okay, because
Yep.
no, and that, okay, because I was going to be I'll be very honest with you, that's one of the things I was going to comment on. From my perspective, I have an absolute open mind on this whole thing. And I said all along, there's nothing wrong with going out to determine what kind of value we really have in the gravel. There's been suggestions that there is value there, but until we get somebody that makes us an offer, it's just a suggestion. So I was fine with doing the RFP, but I've also said all along, we also need the other side of that coin is to have an understanding of what the cost is of this project, because the way we got to look at this, again, just from my perspective, is we have a proposed project. These are the costs itemized that we can all understand, broken out, total cost, and I'm making stuff up. These are not numbers anybody's ever said, but let's say the cost of the project is $5 million, and we get bids on the gravel that add up to $5.5 million. Well, great, we're in good shape. But if we get bids that add up to $1 million, we get a $4 million shortfall. So now it's a different discussion. So having what you're suggesting is, in terms of a set of plans with some estimated costs, is, from my perspective, one of the missing puzzle pieces. And I know it's a process and we're going through it. But I will say I get a little concerned. I hear what you're saying in terms of why certain gravel operations are not interested in the bureaucracy that we sometimes require. I get that. But I also get a little bit concerned that we're not necessarily, I mean, I think we'd have to do almost 2 RFPs, because I don't know that we would be in the, we have the equipment to do what's needed in terms of stripping the, getting rid of the trees and stripping the overburden and all that. I mean, we have some equipment, but we'd probably have to hire somebody to do that with an excavator. So that I could see being another RFP to get that individual. I have no idea, but what's it going to cost to do all the stuff that they don't want to do?
That will be part of the discussion. I'll give you the cost,
Okay.
the projection to cut the trees, strip the overburden, load the trucks. I mean, I can show.
I don't want it right now, but when we get
Yeah.
to the work session, that's fine. I don't want to put you on the spot for that, but the other, my concerns are this, and I'm just being very frank and upfront with you, so there's no confusion when we get there. One, I think we need to have a clear understanding of what the project is and what the estimated costs are, more than just a rendition at a press conference. Number one. And it sounds like we're going to get there at the next work session you call for. That's number one. Number two, I'll be interested in how you plan on skinning this cat, so to speak, in terms of having, quote, us do the stripping of the overburden and the police details and everything else that they don't want any part of, which I understand. But the third thing that worries me a little bit, Steve, or Director, is I'm not, we still have to get very comfortable, because before we start ripping the place up, the way I was thinking about it before was we were going to have a bid in hand that was, solid and secure, so to speak, that we could count on, whereas we could rip it up and we may be able to sell 150,000 yards and maybe we don't sell any more. Or maybe the gravel's not as good as we thought. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there, which brings me back to, and I'm not saying we have to do this, but we've been talking about this for a while, and I don't know if it makes sense at some point to kind of pivot and go back to what the plan was in 2017 when we had the Cass Park Master Plan. And in that, when we were seeking bids, money from DEM and so forth, the plan was at the time, and there was a map with everything mapped out where everything was going, and we weren't changing, excuse me, we weren't going to change we weren't going to build a new football field. The proposed field will be located at the central area of the existing John R. Dion track. So we have a track there that's regulation size. There's a field there, and the plan was to simply utilize that to pave the road coming up and so forth. And that is, again, a regulation track. There is room there. It's not as roomy as we may like, but it's certainly roomy enough on the right-hand side, I believe, and this certainly suggested that maybe I'm not suggesting we don't have the work session go through this, but I think we also have to be at least open-minded to pivoting and using what we have. We have a track there, and if we don't want a turf field, fine, we can put in synthetic without going through all the challenges and potential pitfalls of gutting the rest of Cass Park to get the gravel, which we may or may not be able to sell. There's a lot of contingencies there, so I'm just suggesting that we should at least have this in the back of our minds as a contingency plan, because if we just take the John R. Dion track, do as this said, which was to resurface it, put in the lights, put in the stands on the right-hand side and some on the left, depending which way you're standing, put in a synthetic field, and make some other modest improvements, we could probably get most of the way there, but we'll have that obviously as a more detailed discussion once we get the stuff in front of us. So, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Director D'Agostino? Well, Director, thank you for the update. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
And to all your comments, well received, and I always have an open mind, as you know.
I do.
And I will just point this out. To build this kind of a complex, you're in a $3 million range. And I don't even have to wait till the workshop to tell you that. I will tell you that because I know from many conversations. But I'll have hard numbers for you. The interest I had in selling the material was to recoup some of the funds, no matter where it goes.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So if you can get $1.6 million, say you just get $1.6 million, $4 a yard for 400,000 yards. That goes towards that complex. That's $1.6 million you didn't have.
Yep.
So that was the mindset with that.
Oh, no, I believe me.
And
I
all
understand.
material, I will tell you, is from being in the business. All material sells. It may not sell for $4 or $5 a yard. There may be just some suitable, what they call suitable fill or whatever that you can sell for $2.
Yep.
But in this climate, in this market, everything sells. So yeah, it is risky. I totally agree with you.
Yep.
You can start excavating and then all of a sudden there's a little lull and then all of a sudden, a vendor pops up, takes the whole thing.
Yep.
That's the way it goes. But it would be, I completely share your, approach and everything you say, really.
Well, thank you. And what I was going to say is, when you've got all your stuff together,
That may be a while.
well, no, whatever it takes, but let me know,
Yeah,
and
no.
we'll try and plan it for a Monday or a first, business day of a week between council meetings.
Yeah, PA's going to let me know when they have the plans ready.
Okay.
And they may even attend just to answer any questions as far as building the field and cost but it'll be for the field, the fence, the lights, bleachers, just total installation of the entire complex.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Moving on, Madam Clerk, to new business.
22001, authorizing an amendment of the lease of the water tower space to Cellco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia, seconded by Councilman Susi. Comments?
Council President,
Councilman Canoia.
I'd like to propose an amendment to Section 1 and add to it at the very end, provided that the monthly rent shall increase by $1,000 per month from the existing monthly rate in effect at the date of the amendment execution.
Increase by 1,000 or?
Increase by $1,000 per month from whatever it is at the date of execution. Up in the whereas clause, they indicated 500, but I would suggest 1,000 and get it into the actual ordinance language.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia, seconded by Councilman Gillette. Comments on the amendment? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoia,
Yes.
Councilman Gillette,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra,
Yes.
Councilman Susi.
Yes.
Councilman Ward,
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and 22001 is amended on a 6-0 vote. On the main motion as amended,
Council President,
Councilman Canoia.
and for the avoidance of doubt, the current lease requires an annual 3% escalator, and this should also be subject to the 3%. And it indicates, they have this in the language in the attachment. But just to be clear, I will add one more amendment, continuing that last one, which shall be, just add comma, which shall increase by 3% per annum.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia,
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman Sierra. Comments on the amendment? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoia,
Yes.
Councilman Gillette,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra,
Yes.
Councilman Susi.
Yes.
Councilman Ward,
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and 22001 is amended on a 6-0 vote. On the main motion as amended, comments?
Can I ask a question on this?
Director D'Agostino, yes.
So am I to interpret, if they don't agree to these terms, we tell them to get their antenna off or whatever device they have?
Whatever they want.
So yes?
Yeah, it's $1,000 or,
Well, no, but the thing is they're looking to amend their lease. so they can leave the lease the way it is.
Yeah.
Can I, Councilman, if I can just interject just for a second. The present lease right now allows them to do whatever they need to do. There is an honest flaw in the lease that was approved and signed. I've been negotiating this one now for a long time, and at first they wanted to give 0. We threw a high number. We said 3,000. They came back and said, you know, we looked at it according to the way the lease is. That's why if you look at section 8 that we rewrote, that it has to come back to us for any kind of changes. Right now, the lease says that they don't need to come back to us. Hence why they said that they don't have to increase. They were willing at least to come to the 500. They're actually only putting in 3 little boxes behind the antennas to bring it up to today's standards. They're removing some outdated equipment and installing what they call these 3 duplexes. I will go back to them with whatever the council directs, but I foresee that it may just get a little ugly on their part. It's the
Let it
way
get
it
ugly,
is
Mike.
written.
Yeah,
Understood. I'm
that's-
just saying
Let
that.
it get ugly.
That's all I want. I just want to make sure when it gets, I got no problem with getting ugly.
Yeah.
I got no problem with that. So just do what they direct, and if it gets ugly, it gets ugly.
Okay, any other comments?
Mr. President,
Councilman Gillette?
my concern was with the 5G. Is what they want to do going to have anything to do with the 5G?
I'm not an expert at any of this, Councilman. This is one of those as duties assigned, and I've been working on these leases for many years. So this is upgrades that they need to bring it to what they have right now. In any of their paperwork and stuff, nothing's mentioned on 5G or whatever. It's some changes that they need to do to the existing
We can ask.
equipment. Yes.
My thought was, and I know less than you do about 5G and all that stuff, let me tell you right now. My concern is if 5G has anything to do with what they want to change, improve, okay? That in my mind is saying to me that they're probably going to make more money because of these changes.
Right.
So if that's the case, then maybe what Councilman Canoyer is indicating that he'd like to see happen is probably something that, they would probably agree with if asked. If not, then they could be getting away with something. But that was my thought coming into the meeting. I have my indications here to bring that up. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, on the main motion as amended, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22001 is approved, 6-0 as amended.
22R05, granting permission to use city property.
Motion to pass.
Madam Clerk, before we take another question, I'm going to recuse myself on this item, ask the Council Vice President to take this, because I sit as the President of the Foundation of the Museum, so I will recuse myself from any discussion or votes on this item.
Mr. President, could I do the same as a sitting member of the Foundation of the Museum? So I will do the same as well and recuse myself.
Got nobody left to vote on it.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Well, no, we got a quorum. There's 4 of us. We're all set.
22R05, granting permission to use city property.
Motion to pass.
Motion to approve by Councilman Gillette, seconded by Councilwoman Sierra. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The resolution is approved. Council President, back to you.
Thank you, Councilman Ward.
22R06, authorizing the city of Woonsocket to enter into a lease agreement with Seacoast Motorcycles LLC for police Harley Davidson motorcycles, bid number 6047.
Motion approved.
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments?
Mr. President,
Councilman Gillette.
are these, what is the use for these motorcycles?
They are used for traffic. They obviously they're a smaller vehicle. They can be strategically placed at locations where bigger cruisers can't be placed. Also for, it's a good morale for the department, such as we have the, just pride for the department, such as we have the honor guard. It's used in ceremonies and what have you.
I could also see them being used at the Autumn Fest parade, too.
Yeah, events like that, yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
But, okay, I'm just curious of what they were being used for. I know we had some a long time ago, motorcycles, and I think we had gotten rid of them. So, do you remember when we got rid of them? Do we have any now?
Yeah, we have, this is a re-up of the lease. We have 2 right now, yeah.
You have 2, so this is going to be on top of the 2 that we have?
No, this is, the lease from the last 2 vehicles
Okay.
has expired, so this is, it actually should be in the budget for that too, moving forward. But
The
that was in
renewal-
last year's budget.
renewal of a
It's a
lease, then.
continuation of a new lease, I should
Okay,
say.
all right, good, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing,
No, I'm good.
oh, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R06 is approved, 6-0.
22R07, authorizing the mayor to sign SNEP Watershed Grant Subrecipient Agreement between Restore Americans Estuaries and the City of Woonsocket.
Madam Clerk, before we get into any discussion, I will be asking for a motion to table this item. We did have a work session that we had agreed to hiring engineering to look at the prospects of doing this linear park, and it was supposed to come back to the council for some information. So with that being said, I'd like to potentially schedule a work session for January 31st, but I will check with everyone for their availability. And with that being said, I'll make a motion to table.
Motion to table
Second.
for a future work session.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Canoyer and Councilman Gillette. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22R07 is tabled 6-0 for a pending work session. Madam Clerk, I would ask if you could reach out to the directors and see if January 30th, and the council, and see if January 31st will work for a work session. If not, we will look at another date.
I'm off, but I'll be here.
Okay, sorry, Madam Clerk.
Council President,
Council Vice President Ward.
having completed 67 cycles around this sun today, I motion to adjourn this meeting.
And wishing you a happy birthday. Do we have a second?
We do.
Second, motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilwoman Sierra to adjourn this meeting on Council Vice President John Ward's birthday. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourning this meeting at 7:48.
Can I have a few minutes to speak about why we should have some more police officers on the force?
We do not have any provision for public comment at these meetings. Sorry.
No, because of